Welcome to Fearless Conversations, a podcast by free thinkers of the world. The content within this episode is intended for mature audiences only. Hi, welcome to Fearless Conversations. I'm Euge and I'm with my co-host.
Hello, Mariano.
And today, Shadi Barazi is joining us. He's a retired mechanical engineer and karate instructor, now full-time volunteer with Athlos World, a non-profit organization dedicated to helping disabled refugee athletes and their families. Welcome, Shadi.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me with you. It's my pleasure, and I'm grateful for the opportunity.
So we would like you to tell us about yourself.
Okay, so I'm 68 years old, retired. I was born in Syria, in Damascus, lived there until I'm 22 years old. When I was in Syria, I was very much into practicing karate, so I became a member of the national karate team there. In 1976, I won the Middle East Championship, and my aspirations were to be a world champion and a karate instructor. So although I was registered at the university to go and become an engineer, I was really not attending except as little as possible. But then in 1976 or early 77, I left the country and I went to England. My goals were to pursue my karate career and learn English and maybe go to Japan from there. So I went to England and started practicing there and learning English. Went from there to the Gulf countries briefly for a few months to work. And then I realized when I was working that I will never get anywhere without an advanced degree. So I decided to go and pursue that too while I'm doing karate. And I came to the United States and I signed up and graduated 4 years later from Rice University with a degree in mechanical engineering. Meanwhile, I couldn't find in Houston a karate dojo I can train in, so I opened my own karate dojo. So then my life became somebody who is studying and teaching or working and teaching. It became an 8 to 5 job and a 5 to 8:30 karate instructors. It became a lot of work, but it was very rewarding. And from there on, I went into professionally different ventures, oil field ventures, and computer and export and import, and then became the technology director and innovation for an oil field transportation company. All the time I was teaching karate and competing, and I became a member of the U.S. national team, competed in the Pan American Championship in Venezuela. And then after that, I started coaching, and I was involved with an organization called Shotokan Karate-Do International Federation in Japan. And I became a coach for their U.S. national team in 2 world championships in Tokyo and in Greece. On and on, I always loved doing charity. And my karate allowed me to do that by teaching at the YMCA and having a big program, over 200 students. A lot of the students were poor. And one of the things I did is whenever I found out that the parents wanted to withdraw their students because they couldn't afford the fees, I waived the fees for them. So I let them train karate. Some people trained karate with me for 15 years without paying any money. I never charged them for belt tests. I gave them free uniforms, and I gave them belts for free. And to me, the purpose was simple. I never taught karate to create champions. I taught karate because I believed karate restores a lot of the issues in humans' flaws and character. And for a kid in particular who lacks confidence or not sure or lacks concentration, karate provided a switch to that personality that by the time they went to high school, even if they had quit karate by that time, they are a focused, disciplined, respectful person. And changing those attributes allowed that person to excel in high school, go to college, and instead of quitting, became an engineer, became a doctor, became a productive citizen. So to me, I felt that in the 35 years that I taught, I'm sure over 10,000 kids, that maybe I contributed to the life of half of these people, not myself alone, but somehow nudging them towards the right direction. And
let me just interrupt for a sec, because I was part of that. That's how we met. I started karate a little bit later in my life, or when I was 21, which I wish I would have started much sooner. But even at 21, it really gave me a lot more self-confidence. It helped me to be able to go out in the world and to maybe handle business interviews, or just the self-confidence that I could achieve things that maybe before I would have felt just fearful, scared to do certain things. So the combination of, well, I was going to ask you, what are the core principles? What are some of the core principles that you teach through karate?
It's interesting. So there's an instructor that teaches like step by step karate. This is what you do. This is how it's done. This is a punch. This is a kick. I never took that way of teaching. Yes, I know the mechanical and the technical part. But for me, I'll give an example. I was coaching at a school called Kincaid, and I was teaching in their PE program 5 times a week. But I decided that 3 times a week will be karate, 1 time a week will be conditioning, and 1 time a week will be what I called philosophy day. And those were teenagers. And philosophy day that we sat down, and because they look at a sensei as a mentor, I am not like a teacher. A teacher, they try to taunt and give a hard time. A sensei is somebody who's wearing a black belt, confident, and is a mentor to them. So they connected with me in a different way. And philosophy day became their most enjoyable class for them, because we open topic. They can talk about anything they want, not karate. It can be very controversial. And then at the end, we must learn something from it, and we have to end with a positive note. And I remember
a couple of examples.
Yes, so I remember like one of the kids who was a very, very, very smart kid. He's actually now one of the top IT people, University of Chicago. The head, when they graduated high school, the headmaster said, when you leave us for 2 years or 3 years, please write back and tell us what we did right and what we did wrong. And Richard, my student, wrote a long letter writing to them page after page what they did wrong. And it's one of the top, most prestigious schools in the country. And then he wrote a page what they did right. And he said the karate program was what really prepared him for leaving the high school and going to college and going to life. And that's a very, very, very intelligent, super smart kid. Another kid of mine, which you know, Joshua.
Yeah.
Joshua said to me when we stayed friends and we stayed in contact until now, and he's now a very good writer. Joshua said, a lot of my core values, Sensei, I took from you. You planted those into me during me being your student. And there I go through life through those core values. So I think the Sensei being a mentor, it's like and I don't mean that really in this way, but like people who follow a guru, the guru becomes their source of inspiration and ethical and morality. And the sensei, in a way, takes a little bit of that role too, because they admire the sensei so much that whatever the sensei says, they take it home and it stays with them for the rest of their lives. So another student of mine, I was teaching a class, a 13-year-old girl, came to class and I looked at her and I felt something really dark in her eyes. So I pulled her to the side and I said, do you want to talk? And she said, yes. And I took her to the side and I put my assistant to teach the class and I spent an hour talking to her. She was talking about her parents divorcing and how she was devastated because of that. And I realized that it was affecting her to an extreme. She's 13. So I told her, well, the crisis is happening. Maybe it will reverse, maybe not. But what is it that you can do about it? That is a duty of yours now. And she said, duty? And I said, yes. What? I said, you now, instead of making your parents panic and worry about you in the middle of divorce, you need to go to both of them and tell them you support them. And you need to take on an adult role and help them.
Yeah.
And her eyes popped open. 6 months later, I found out from a letter her father wrote to the YMCA that she told him that day that she was planning to commit suicide that day. And that when I told her that she is now responsible for supporting her parents, she went back and decided that that's her role and that she has a responsibility. And it made her change her mind. So to me, it's like these little things that, and I have 100 other stories, minimum, like that. Interestingly enough, one person asked me, why did you do this? Most karate people do karate, they teach seminars, they do belt tests, they take money. It's a career, it's how they support their family. And I really didn't have the answer until Athlos became. Because when I left the karate and I stopped teaching day in, day out, I had a void in my heart for the ability to do charity. And I was wondering, why do I have a void while other people don't? And then I remembered my childhood. My father was a warden of prison, but he never saw prisoners as criminals. He saw prisoners are people who made a big mistake. And his job was to repair that and turn them back into productive citizens. So in the prison system, in the 50s, he introduced education, vocational training, sports, and art. And started telling the prisoners, if you join my job and my education and my sport teams and go to do art, I will every year, with no infractions, remove 20% of your sentence.
Yeah.
And everybody joined, everybody. And all of a sudden, there was an actual correction to that person. And my father told me, a lot of these people are young people who are stupid or drunk or crazy, and they did something really dumb. But once you educate them, you get them to high school again, you make them appreciate art, you make them play in a team, understand camaraderie and loyalty. When they have a job that can support them and support their families, they will not go back to crime. Because crime is not a great choice. It was a desperate choice or a stupid choice. So I was raised in that house, and I was raised actually in the prison. After school, I come to the prison and I play there with the prisoners. And my mother was a blind teacher for the blind, teacher for the blind.
Yeah.
I remember she used to come home and fix their clothes and make them food and read to them all the time so they can do the braille, because there were no books in braille at that time. So she had to read to them and they copy. And I played in the school of the blind with the blind kids. So I was with two parents that all they did is charity. It was their job, but they did it differently. They didn't just go do the job as a warden of prison. They did the job of serving people. She did the job of helping the blind people because they needed help, not only teach. And she graduated, many of them, with a doctorate degree.
Yeah.
And stayed friends with them. So then I realized then that it's a legacy. I have a reference point that's different than other reference points. And for me, there's a nagging need to do charity. And it got us to Athlos now, and that was my way of continuing what I always yearned for, the things that I always wanted to do. And whatever that's the only thing that makes me feel good inside. You can play soccer, you can jump, you can run, you can play tennis, you can sit with friends, you can have a drink. but you always have one more need that makes you feel empty. And for me, that one more need is charity.
Yeah,
that's very inspiring, yeah. And I really admire everything you're telling us. Your work with charity in karate. I was a drama teacher for 13 years, and I work with teenagers, so I can relate to getting involved in helping students. It's not only about the academic stuff; it's about becoming human beings and working in society. So it's really beautiful. And how was the Athlos World origin? How did that begin?
Okay, so at the beginning, being in karate, and because of the Syria crisis, there were a lot of Syrian refugees in Europe. And many of the Syrian refugees that were there were Middle East champion or Asia champion in karate. But arriving in Europe, now they are a refugee, they have little resources, and they cannot compete in the European championships because they are not German or Dutch or Italian. So through a friend of mine, we started arranging for them special permission to enter and compete. And I started supporting them financially, not to live, just like support a trip, their travel ticket, their hotel accommodation. And sometimes I'll fly to Europe and attend the tournament, and I help them, and just doing a little bit of help, basically, to people who are from the same discipline of sport that I am. That led me to meet a young man. His name is Ibrahim Al-Hussein. Ibrahim, and I need to stop here for a second and tell his story, because in my opinion, it's one of the most compelling stories that I ever heard in my life. Ibrahim is from a town in Syria called Deir ez-Zor. Ibrahim is the son of a guy who won 2 times Asia champion in swimming. And Deir ez-Zor is a very small primitive town with a big river, the Euphrates River. And pretty much they don't have any closed pools. So they swim year round, even in the winter, either in the pool or in the river, and they freeze. So he hated swimming. His father wanted all his sons to be swimmers. And Ibrahim hated it. And his father was old-fashioned. So if you did make a mistake, he beat you up, So Ibrahim hated it more. And he said to his father, I want to do judo. I don't want to do swimming. So he went and started doing judo. And became actually second place in the national championship in the junior division, the under 16-year-old. And he wanted to pursue becoming a judo champion. In 2004, Ibrahim was watching the Olympics in Greece, where Michael Phelps won all these gold medals. And he was so inspired watching him win one medal after one medal. And he said to his father, I want to be a swimmer. I want to be an Olympian. I'll do anything you want. Just make me an Olympian. And he started swimming again. So he was doing judo and swimming and training every day in the cold. And he graduated high school, becoming a better and better swimmer. But then they drafted him to the military. When he was drafted, usually as an athlete, you are sent to the athletic division of the military, where you represent the army in judo and in swimming. But because he didn't have the right connections, he was stationed at the border, carrying a machine gun and standing at the border for a year and a half. So no sports. Then he comes back from swimming, from the military, and back to swimming. And then the civil war starts in Syria. And when the civil war started, of course, it didn't interrupt his swimming, but of course, it's an interruption to life. Ibrahim and some of his friends were having breakfast or lunch, and one of the friends left early. And as soon as he stepped out of the house, they heard the pop, pop, sniper shot.
Oh, sniper, yeah.
And then the friend starts screaming, Ibrahim, Ibrahim, I'm shot, come save me. And Ibrahim ran out of the house and with his friends. And the friend said, don't go, because he's shot at an intersection. And usually what happens, they shoot you at an intersection, and then you run there, and then they hit you with a cannon shell, like a tank shell, and they kill as many people as possible. So he said, I don't care, I'm going to save my friend. And he ran. And he arrived to his friends and grabbed him. And then, of course, the cannon shell came. And it blew all of them up. It landed half a meter from Ibrahim. Took his right leg out, his foot out, under the knee, out, completely gone. And his friends started saying, are you okay, Ibrahim? And he said, I lost my leg, because he could see his leg is not there. And he grabbed his friend through the dust and pulled him. And they rolled to the basement of a building close. And of course, after the dust settled, they were not there anymore to be shot again. And some people ran to the basement and took them to a makeshift hospital operated by a dentist, where the dentist did the amputation sealing with the fire, where they seal the burn, the cut wound, without anesthesia, with 4 people holding Ibrahim. After that, he was taken to the country to recover, and with no food and with one friend helping him. So they were eating whatever they can put their hands on. And he tells a funny story, how his friend one time went and finally came back with a half a kilo of meat. And he said, look what I got half a kilo of meat. I'm going to make you a steak. It's going to be good for you. And he put it in the kitchen and goes to get something else. And a cat comes and steals it. And,
No.
And then how they had this dream of a steak, and then the dream is gone, Eventually, the doctor recommended to Ibrahim, look, you need to go to a proper hospital, because I don't know if I did this right, and it might become gangrene and you die. So he was smuggled in a boat on the Euphrates River to a little town, and then by buses all the way to Turkey. And he thought that he would receive medical treatment in Turkey, but all what it was, some maybe a nurse looked at it and said, you're okay. He stayed there for a couple of months, and it didn't work out. So he went all the way to Istanbul. In Istanbul, he stayed in this basement apartment with like 8 or 9 other disabled people, all awaiting some money or help so they can flee on boat to Greece. And imagine people are drowning on boats who are fully healthy, and now you have somebody missing a leg and getting on the boat. Then he gets on the boat and he makes it to Greece. And he arrives in Greece with a wheelchair, missing leg, and no money, nothing at all. And he finds himself in the streets of Athens after they released them from the initial 2-week review, eating grass and eating tree leaves and not knowing what to do. He doesn't speak the language, he doesn't know anything. So one Middle Eastern guy passes by and he looks at him and he says, you're from the Middle East? He says, yes, what are you doing here? And he tells him his story. And the guy picks up the phone and calls a Greek athlete who is also a para-athlete, friend of his, and he told him the story in Greek. And the guy comes over with his car and takes Ibrahim to a doctor who does prosthesis. And the doctor, they explain the story of Ibrahim, and the doctor makes him a prosthesis, a very functional one, for free. He decides to make him a leg for free. So now, he said, at that moment, I went from a burden to a person that can walk. Now I can work. And he started looking for work. And he found a job in a bus stop, cleaning toilets from 5 in the evening till 5 in the morning. He cleans toilets. People started telling him, weren't you a swimmer? Weren't you an athlete? He said, yes, but it's been 5 years now. I haven't done any. And they said, well, why don't you go to the clubs here? They let you do sports. And he said he went to every club they told him about, and he was kicked out. Please, can you allow me to swim twice a week? Get out, get out, get out. Then one club told him, well, we don't have a pool, but you're welcome to play basketball. It's wheelchair basketball. I said, I don't know anything about basketball. Said, yeah, but you're an athlete. You're judo, you're swimming, you can learn. So he started training with them from 12 to 2, wheelchair basketball. And by the way, now he's a professional wheelchair basketball player. He makes money from it. One of the people there later on told him, I think I have a place that will allow you to swim. A few months later. So they went there and they told him, yes, they let him swim. And they let him swim for 2 to 4 after the basketball. So he puts his swimsuit on for the first time in like years. And he stands there to dive and he looks around and he realizes he's standing exactly where Michael Phelps was standing in 2004.
Wow.
And then at that moment, he said, it's almost like a feeling went through him. And he said, all my anger is gone. All my hate is gone. And I realized that I am here now to make sure this doesn't happen to other people like me, that I tell their story. That I am there to show them that after all what happened, look, I'm working, I'm playing basketball, I'm swimming, you can do the same thing. He didn't know that it would even go further than that. And he started swimming, started going to work 5 to 5, going to basketball 12 to 2, going to swimming 2 to 4, and on and on and on. 6 months later, he competed in the Athens Para Swim Championship, and he won first place. Then he competed in the Greek Para Swim Championship, and he won first place. And it was the same year of the Rio Olympics. So some of the reporters that came and talked to him asked him, aren't you excited you're going to the Olympics? And he said, no, I won the Greek championship, but I'm a refugee. I cannot represent Greece. So somebody else is going. The second place guy is going. But I am staying here and I'm the champion. And he was heartbroken. A week later, he gets a telephone call that says, Rahim Hussein, yes, we're calling you from the IPC, International Paralympic Committee. We decided this year to do a refugee team. And you are the first chosen refugee for that team. And we decided that you are going to be the flag bearer of the Olympics, that you will carry the flag.
Oh my gosh.
And he thought somebody was playing a joke, a practical joke. And then he realized later it's true. And he said, I kept laughing and crying for like 2 hours when I hung up. He said, I'm laughing and crying. I'm laughing and crying. I couldn't believe this could happen. And then, of course, he was not ready yet to compete at that level, but he still went. And he received the Medal of Bravery from one group, the best athletes from one group. He received so much recognition. And at that moment, another light lit in his mind. I don't have to win. I am a story of a refugee who made it to the Olympics. That alone brings all the media. Now I can represent it. I can talk about the crisis. I can talk about the problem. Then I met Brahim. And I met him when he was so motivated now to do something to tell the story. And he told me, we need to form a wheelchair basketball team that is all refugees and make it play in Europe and talk about the refugee crisis, the disabled refugee crisis. And in 2019, we did the first inaugural game for a team in Germany, and I sponsored that team. And we had all this aspiration now to have a team, and we get approval from the International Wheelchair Basketball Federation to compete in Europe, and they send people to take videos, and they took videos of our team and of the game, interviews and all that stuff. And COVID hit. And it was a cripple to our organization. And we continued supporting Ibrahim for his swimming competitions, but we couldn't do anything else because there were no resources. We couldn't do anything. And meanwhile, a lot of athletes were contacting us. Why basketball? I am a weightlifter. Why basketball? I'm a fencer. Why basketball? I am a ping pong player. And they were all disabled refugees. So the idea of Athlos formed. Why only a basketball team, why not form an organization that help disabled refugee athletes, bring them on international competition stages, and then they become the voice of the rest of the refugees. And that was the birth of Athlos. There are 100 million displaced people in the world. 100 million. Displaced means either moved from their home somewhere else, and they are either in tent or temporary place residents, but they lost their homes and lost their where they used to live, or they are refugee, moved from the country completely. Of those 100 million, there are 12 million permanently disabled. 12 million. So there are a population bigger than Germany of displaced and refugees. And there is a population bigger than Greece in disabled people. The crisis is not small, it's huge. It's incredibly big. And these are permanently disabled people. When you are a refugee, you lose your home, you lose some members of your family, you lose your wealth, you move to a new country, maybe different language, maybe different religion, different culture, and you have no job. That is horrible. But when you are on top of that, a disabled refugee, your aspiration is to be a beggar. Use your amputation to sit in the corner and beg, because what else can you do? You don't have a wheelchair, you don't have medical treatment, you don't know the language, nobody is going to give you a job. So they are the most disenfranchised people on the planet. And they are also the least represented people on the planet because they are the poorest. They have no resources. And Athlos became that maybe switch of life. Nobody is doing something similar to Athlos, where focus on the disabled refugee athlete and make them the front. So this is how big the problem is. And of course, there are organizations like UNHCR and Red Cross, and they do help. But when you're talking about 100 million people, I don't care how good and big they are, the problem is bigger than they are. So when there are tens of organizations, it's still not enough. When there are hundreds of organizations, it's still not enough. And that's why I feel we must do whatever we can. And so the birth of Athlos was basically that Ibrahim meeting. And Ibrahim made it eventually to the Tokyo Olympics. And COVID was dwindling by that time. So then we revived Athlos. And with the help of Mariano, we formed a 501c3 nonprofit organization in the United States. And we were able to raise some money that we started being active again as Athlos organization. So that brings us to the beginning of 2021 as Athlos is concerned.
Now, this is such an amazing story, so inspiring, and I can imagine all the needs the organization has, the refugees have. Which are the main things you will address when someone reaches you for help?
Well, I'll answer this in a kind of a indirect way. So at the beginning, we thought what we needed is a little bit of money, and then we find out some athletes who have similar thinking to us. We support them a little bit, and then they start training and they will perform well because some of them used to be athletes to start with before their injuries. And then all of a sudden we are working with the IPC, working with the World Championship Federation, working with the Europeans, with the Asian federations, and then they're competing, and then the media comes. And because of the lights being lit on this issue, donations will come, and then we can do something. There was really a very primitive, immature way of thinking. When 2021 came, and we had enough money to do few functions, so we did a function in Turkey where we did a training camp for disabled refugees. Then we did a function in Greece where we brought a basketball team and we trained for 5 days, and we played 2 goodwill tournaments. Then we went to Japan for Refugee Day, and we did presentations and interviews with media. Then we went to Turkey again, and we did a training camp there for refugees again. This experience taught us that our thinking was very primitive. It will not really deliver what we hoped it will deliver. And this is why. If you are a refugee in Germany or in Holland or in Norway, and you are disabled, they treat you like a German citizen that is disabled. So if they're giving the German citizen a disability check of 1,500 euros, they give you a disability check of 1,500 euros. And if they're giving you 800 euro as a refugee, you're getting that too. And if you're getting 200 euros per child, then you're getting that too. So that the refugees, the disabled refugees in Europe and Western world are kind of taken care of. Of course, they need help still because they're disabled, but they're receiving a lot of help from the Western world. But when you look at Greece, Turkey, Jordan, Lebanon, Egypt, Africa, those places, the refugee lives in incredibly extreme poverty, hungry, and there are no systems for support, no system in place. So as we went with this naive idea of making them into athletes, and I'm there mixing with them, how do you make an athlete of a person who's eating bread dipped in water? He's malnutrition. How can he train 2 hours a day in swimming if he's going to faint after 15 minutes because he doesn't have any food, any nutrition in his system? So, okay, so maybe you can solve it by giving him a meat sandwich. Well, guess what happened when you give him the meat sandwich? He gives it to his wife because she's at home starving. He takes it, he says, I'll eat it later. But he takes it home and gives it to his wife or to his child. He's not going to eat it. Okay, well, how do you make him an athlete and he speaks to the world when he doesn't speak a foreign language other than Arabic or African language? And how do you make him speak intelligently when he stopped his education at age 14 or at 5th grade level? So we recognize that the problem, the solution to the problem is not only that we help athletes. It's actually in taking these athletes and creating a program that encompasses education, food program, training program, and also a mind enlightenment program, explaining what their role is, how they will approach things. And whether they become superior athletes or not, you are changing the life of a person through sports, which makes you happy to start with. So our scope of work went from focusing on the elite athletes, which of course they will emerge and we will help them, to focusing on making sport part of the life of the disabled refugee, but also introduce to him and his family education and a food program. So what is the help that we need then? Well, of course we need money because we need to pay rent for the school, we need to pay salary for the teachers. But we are doing these things in third world countries where, I'll give you an example. We have an office in Turkey operated now by 2 paralyzed refugees. And for the office and for the salaries of both refugees, one of them is a degree in education, was an IT person. And for the salary of the accountant and the rent of the office and all the expenses and also the support of our basketball team there, our budget is $480 per month. Includes all that, salaries and stuff and all. So if we do a school that we're now looking for a school to rent, if we do the school that will school, feed, and train 100 people, our cost is under $5,000 a month for the teachers and the food and for 100 people. So we need money, of course, to be able to do that. But we also need people talking about this issue. So we need awareness. We need a grassroots movement to start, to where eventually we have people following us on Twitter and on Instagram and on Facebook. And then when we have 1 million followers, maybe $1 a year would be $1 million. $1 a year of 1 million followers. There are many people who fell off a chair and now they have 16 million followers. You know, and they're now falling off chairs and falling off cars and falling, and people are laughing. You know, we need used equipment. We need from medical society to say, okay, bring me measurements of amputees, and I'll find ways to donate limbs for them. So we need all these things, because the problem is we are not the solution, we're part of the solution. The problem is big. But if we create a model where we show our way now, our new way after understanding is the solution, is part of the solution, where education with food and with sports is the solution, and we create a prototype, a small prototype, and then somebody comes and says, I like what you're doing, why don't you multiply it by 100? Then all of a sudden, it's 100,000 people that we're helping. And then it's 1 million people, and it's 3 million people. And then we create a model that other organizations can follow too. And then we can take that model from Turkey to Jordan, to Lebanon, to Egypt, to whatever place that it can be done good in the third world countries, because that's where the model operates at very low cost, and that's where it's needed the most. That's where the people, they do not even eat. Our refugees in Turkey, disabled refugees, a family of 4 receives 56 euro per month. 56 euros, $60 per month. Yeah. Their rent is maybe 70 or 80, their rent. The father, who is amputated or paralyzed, works as a delivery person on a motorcycle, tricycle. And all day, 6 days a week working, makes $70 a month. So now he has 130. So now they can eat bread and sometimes cheese, sometimes just dipped in water, sometimes. So if we create this food program where they're receiving 7 nutritious meals every week, and we don't cook the meal, we bring them the groceries, then we know that that family is eating. So the son is not malnutrition. If we educate the son and teach him English and Turkish, now he's not failing in school. He's not failing in school, then he's not hating school. Because if he hates school, he quits. If he quits at 13 or 14, he becomes somebody who cleans windshields. That's it. That's his aspiration for life. But if we reverse his hate for education by tutoring him, and then he becomes a college student, then we graduated a college graduate. So the solution to the problem is to fix the whole family problem, not only the amputee problem, not only the paralyzed person problem. The whole, because his worries are not only his injury, his worries are his son and his daughter and his wife. And we have to come and take that worry away. And we have to become the solution. And this is how, maybe that's a long way of answering your question, but so the help is all of these, but of course it starts with money. Our organization is only volunteer based. We don't take salary. So all the money goes to the cause, all of it. 100% of the money goes to the cause. None of us take a salary. We have about 32, 34 volunteers in Japan, in Greece, in Turkey, in the United States. We all try our best and we don't take any salary. So to us, every penny somebody helps with goes straight to feed somebody. I'll give you another story, because sometimes stories tell better or answer better things. A kid with his father who's playing on the basketball team in Turkey. The father cannot hear, cannot speak, and is paralyzed. A building fell on top of him. So the kid is the one who does the sign language for his father when the coach is giving instructions. And he translates communication. He's 11-year-old. So I look at him and his color, face color is strange. Kind of orangey yellow. you know. And I called him and I said, come here. And he said, hi, uncle. He calls me uncle because that's the way they do there. And I said, are you a good student? He said, yes. I said, what school, what grade are you? He says, fifth grade. I said, what do you want to be? He said, I want to be a doctor. I said, okay. But you're a good student. He said, yes. I said, you're not going to quit school. He said, no. I said, okay, I'm going to make you a doctor. And he smiled. And then I said to him, what do you want to eat? And he named this herb, Italian herb, that you put, sometimes when you go to Italian restaurant and they sprinkle it on the olive oil, you know that, and you dip in it. He named that herb because it's very cheap there. So if you put it on bread, it changes the taste of the bread, basically flavors it. So he named a sandwich of that herb, which is like penny. And I said, no, no, no. What else do you like? And he said, that's the only thing we eat. That's the only thing they eat at home. They don't eat anything else. And then I discovered why his face color was yellowish orange. Because his malnutrition.
Yeah.
So then I came back to my children and I was crying for a long time when I met that kid. So I talked to my sons and I said, hey, you are employed. Every one of you is going to give me $25. And they said, okay. And I said, we're not solving the world problem, but we're going to make that kid go to college. And we started sending $100 a month to the family. And that $100 is not a lot, but it feeds them. It feeds their family for the whole month.
Yeah.
And every time I send it, he sent a message thanking me. And then he tells me his grades. And he said, I'm making hundreds all the time. And in a way, he connected his grades with being paid. Like he's supporting the family now. Because his father makes $70 a month when he works. He's making more than his father by being a good student.
Wow.
So as little as that story is, and it maybe helps one family, and that's not the solution really, but it tells you the severity of the problem. And so Athlos now is embarking on doing a new method to show the world, look what we did and how it worked, and take that model and then put it in front of organizations and charities and foundations and say, look, here's documentations, here's video, here's numbers. Look what we did with little money, with 100 people. Can you please help us make it 1,000? Can you please help us multiply it in other places? And I think a foundation, for example, like the Bill Gates Foundation or George Clooney Foundation, when they see something like that, then there's an interest. They might say, okay, show me how you multiply it by 10. And then if you prove that it works, I'm going to make you multiply it by 100. And then we'll take that and we'll multiply it by 10 and we show them the result. And then on. So hopefully 4 or 5 years from now, we succeeded this way. And then we are in 4 countries or 5 countries and 20 cities. And each city has the same system working with disabled people and their families. And at the same time, out of this will emerge superior athletes. And at that time, that athlete speaks English and has education and understands us. And he has the same core values as our organization. And then when he goes and competes, we don't worry about what he's saying. We know he's going to say exactly the right thing. And he's going to tell the story. And he's going to describe the solution. Because he's one of us.
Yeah.
That's what we're hoping to accomplish.
So right now, you're only in Turkey or you're also in some other countries?
Right now, our focus, because our budget is so tiny right now, we are focused on one city in Turkey called Rihaniya, which is very, very close to the Syrian border. And it has a lot of Iraqi and Syrian injured or disabled people. Like Rihaniya right now has 600 paralyzed and 800 amputees in that little town. So there's 1,400 people. And if we take 14 and an average family of 3 or 4, we can actually, there alone, help 5,000 people. But the program we're trying to do is to help 100 first. because we don't have the budget for 5,000. But if it succeeds, we can take it to 5,000. And if it succeeds, we can go to the next city and do the same program for 5,000. And then we can go to Jordan, to the refugee camp, and do another thing for 5,000. And we are focusing completely on disabled refugees. And we're using athleticism as a way to change their outlook on life and be happier, but also by helping their family and then generating athletes. So that's really where we stand right now.
And you have offices in Greece?
We have offices in Turkey and Greece. Greece, the office is not very much operating now other than support office, because in order to activate that office and do the same thing in Greece, it takes 10 times or 5 times the budget of Turkey. So if I am going to do something in Greece now and it's going to cost me 15,000 euros a month, I can open 3 schools in Turkey with that. So I'm keeping the office in Greece as a support office. And because there are a lot of refugees in Greece too, and eventually we can produce a lot of athletes from them. But we're waiting until we have the budget to activate that office too. Because the refugees in Greece get also very little. Very little.
And Ibrahim is based in Greece. He's like the ambassador.
He's based in, yes, Ibrahim is based in Greece, and he's in Athens. He's right now practicing swimming and wheelchair basketball, but he's being approached by the Paralympic coach for Greece. He wants him to be a triathlete because he said you have really good endurance, you're an athlete, and you swim, and that's the weakest event in for people in the triathlon. So if you start biking in place at home, so he got a bike home, and you can start biking, and then we can make you into, you probably can really excel being a Paralympic triathlete. So he's trying to test himself there too.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Does Ibrahim speak English?
No, speak Greek, and he's actually learning English right now as we speak. He's just trying to take 2 or 3 times a week on YouTube. And today we signed Ibrahim with Toyota as a Toyota athlete.
Congratulations.
So he just signed the contract today, so I can announce that. And starting today, he will start receiving payment from Toyota. So his life now went from extreme poverty to, of course, they're not paying him a lot, but now he can live and he can pay for coaching and he can afford to do all the things he has to do because otherwise before that, he was doing everything at the minimum. And now and we will be heading to Qatar to go in March, where he will be a judge in the Toyota Dream Car Contest for children, and he will give inspirational speeches in Qatari schools of disabled kids. So that will be happening in March. So that's really good. We're starting to see positive steps happening, but at the same time, we're getting very, very, very little support financially.
How can people help people that watch this video? If they want to get in contact, if they want to make a donation, how can people help from home?
Okay, so there are 3 or 4 vehicles of help. The number one most important vehicle is awareness. Spread the awareness on the story. Whether it helps us or it helps another organization, it still helps. If we end up being organizations, once we have our activities rolling, that has, like I said, 1 million or 2 million followers, that by itself is going give us incredible support for life. Because it takes $3 per year per supporter if you have 3 million to get $10 million. And we're operating at a budget of 60 and 70,000. So imagine that. So that awareness. The second type of help is if the individual wants to help themselves. I much rather not receive $1,000 donation. I'd much rather receive a $30 monthly donation. Because when we receive monthly donations through the website on credit card, then we have a budget. Then I know next month, if I have 10,000 this month, I have 10,000 next month. But if I have received 1,000 this month and nothing next month, how can I do any planning? Because planning requires a budget, right? So the second way of help is I tell my sons, for example, you know what, skip that one shot of tequila, or skip that one breakfast you take your girlfriend out per month and donate that $35. Say to yourself, that one breakfast now, I'm going to skip it and it's going to feed the family. You know? So that's one way of helping too. The third way of helping is people who are part of organizations, like they are with Dow Chemical or with some big corporation, where they will introduce us to their HR department. And then the HR department will bring us to talk to them and we show them what we're doing. And they might give us a grant or put us in front of their employees, talk to all their employees, the whole employment body. Look, we have this project. If you're interested in helping, please help. So a company that has 50,000 employees can send a memo to their employees and introduce us. That alone can be, so there are all these things that can be part of help. We have a website, and the website has a donate button. And the simplest help would be to click in and donate $100, for example. People also can donate time. If somebody is a skilled IT person and he wants to help us improve our website, because I don't want to spend any organization money on website. I'd rather feed a family. So we have a very primitive website. But somebody might say, you know what? I'm going to give you 20 hours a year. And I'm going to take that website and build it for you and then manage it for you. Well, guess what? That's the same as a $3,000 donation. You know? So there are all kinds. There are people who have Twitter accounts and Instagram accounts, and then they can start sharing our information. So all of a sudden, it's being shared to 1,000 and 2,000 and 3,000 people. So all that kind of help is what we're looking for. We operate now, we do everything, you know, but you cannot do everything. Some people have to take on some tasks, and then we have to focus on making the program happen. So I would take any kind of help. Maybe a writer wants to help us improve our writing. Whenever we do a grant writing, grant writing will be the biggest help we can get. If somebody who's a grant writer and wants to help us write 5 grants, and they are specialized and they know where to send the grants to and how to write them, then we might get a huge grant just by having a skilled person do that for us. So you name it, we can use any kind of help that is possible.
This is amazing, and there's so much to do, and it's so compelling, the story and what you do. And please go follow them on Instagram, on Twitter. We will leave all the links so you can.
Yeah, I'm gonna send you our YouTube channel, our Instagram channel, our Facebook channel. So we have a lady actually who donated that. She said, I'll do that for you. So she in Greece created all these channels, and she's not on payroll, you know. So that was her donation, and she manages the stuff. And I feel really guilty because it's really, she's having to do a lot, but she is disabled herself, and that's why she appreciates that very much. Yeah. So and one thing is very important here. All I told you and all I talked to you about creates imagery in your head of how bad the situation of these people. Take that image, honestly, and multiply it by 100, and you will not even get close. You won't. You walk in the city of Rihaniya, and you see cars, and you see pedestrians, but you see tens and tens of people transporting on wheelchairs. And you think he's going from one building to another building or to a car. No, no, no. That's his transportation. He leaves the house from a very poor neighborhood. If he's working somewhere, he will roll on the wheelchair for 20 to 30 minutes to get to the place where he has to buy groceries or work or do whatever. Then he will roll on the wheelchair for 20 to 30 minutes, exposed to sun or cold or rain. and he has no option of not doing that.
What I see is this thing about awareness. In the Western world, you see a lot of young people I've seen here in the US that have so much, just so much, and they don't even value. And you know, sometimes I include myself. You know, we don't value all the standard of living that we have, all the materials things that we have, all the food that we just throw away. We throw away fruit and vegetables, and I feel like there's so much depression here, depression, anxiety, mental health issues. People don't feel like they have purpose, or things seem hopeless. And I believe that some of that is because there's such a huge imbalance of what's happening in humanity. And if people realize that somebody like Ibrahim and this little boy who give him a little bit of an opportunity, and they just every day they cherish every day for having this opportunity, and they appreciate minor things like food. That's where this imbalance is in humanity, and the people here are suffering when they have so much more, and the people over there are suffering because they don't have enough. They're barely surviving, and we just need to bring this awareness to balance this out, and it's going to be better for the Western world, and it's going to be better for these other third world countries, you know.
And to add to that point a little bit, the people here, and I'm 100% sure of this next statement, if they help the people there, it will make them feel so good and attribute to coming out of depression and attribute to not feeling good about themselves. Because if you realize you're changing the life of 4 people, you feel good all the time.
Yeah.
There's no way you don't feel good when you know you're changing the lives of other people.
And I like your model because it's not just sending food, and then they need food, but it's this more holistic approach.
It's holistic. It's basically bringing these people from whatever disaster broke them into back into society, back into life, back into productivity, back into happiness. So it's a journey. Yeah. It's a journey from horribleness to being back to normality, basically. Even if you're missing your legs, but some kind of normality.
And you have examples, even Steve Jobs, if I understand correctly, he was adopted. He was from Syrian parents.
Yeah, from a city called Homs in Syria. Yeah, the father was Syrian, the mother was American.
Some of these kids can be the next Steve Jobs if you give them that.
Absolutely. I mean, when you think how many Einsteins we miss because the third world, a lot of them end up being window cleaners.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, literally.
So that's the note we want to end, and I appreciate your clarification and that picture that we want to give. But we also have to, I want to help in terms of bringing more awareness. You know, the power of media and film and pictures is like what they say, 1,000 words or more, that even your story coming from your heart and the way you've analyzed this, because you've traveled to all these countries and spend all of this is volunteer work. You spend a lot of your personal money and time. So that's also very inspiring. I mean, that's huge. So I hope to continue these conversations and to work together to help bring more awareness and obviously more funds to achieve these goals.
Thank you. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity again.
Shadi, it was amazing meeting you, learning about your project. I hope you can accomplish all the objectives and count with us to keep spreading the word. And if you can go follow the social media accounts, click the links below that are in the description box, and please go check the project out and help. Spreading the word is already helping. Thanks, Shadi, for joining us. It was our pleasure. And if you liked this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe for more episodes of Fearless Conversations. See you next time.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
This is the end of our episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time.